This is People of the State of Michigan versus Marquand Settle, docket number 20-85FC. And this is the time set for a plea. Mr. Settle, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Settle, you have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Austin, who is present. And Mr. Austin, I'm informed that the defendant is pleading guilty to count 1. Will you waive reading of count 2 if that's correct?
Yes, we will.
Ms. Matuska, would you read count 1, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the People of the State of Michigan versus Marquand Settle in docket number 20-085FC. State of Michigan, County of Ingham. In the name of the people of the State of Michigan, the prosecuting attorney for this county appears before the court and informs the court that on or about January 4th of 2020 at 1808 Denora in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, the defendant did in count 1. Did in the course of committing a larceny of money and or a cell phone use force or violence against a person present, Matthew Ryan Raycraft, and in the course of that conduct possessed a knife, a dangerous weapon, contrary to state law. This is a felony, life or any term of years with DNA to be taken upon arrest.
Mr. Settle, you're being charged here with armed robbery. That is a felony punishable by life or any term of years. Also, if you were on parole at the time of the offense, it would be a mandatory consecutive sentence. Have you had enough time to talk about this charge with your lawyer?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge against you?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about what we're doing?
No.
And how do you want to plead?
Guilty.
Mr. Settle, if your plea of guilty is accepted by this court, it means you won't have a trial of any kind and you'll be giving up the rights that go along with a trial. You may have signed an advice of rights form at one point, but it's floating around here and I have not received it. So I'm just going to go through those orally with you. They should sound familiar, but you have the right to a trial by jury, or if you didn't want trial by jury, trial by judge. You have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty and to require the prosecutor to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. You have the right to have the witnesses against you appear at the trial and to be able to cross-examine them, as well as the right to have this court order any witnesses that you might have to appear at the trial. You have the right to remain silent at the trial and not to have your silence used against you, or in the alternative, you'll be giving up the right to testify at the trial if you wanted to. Also, there's a couple of things about appeals that are different when you plead guilty. One is you don't get an automatic right to appeal your case to the higher court. Instead, you'd have to ask them to look at it and they would have to agree. And the other is there are many issues when you plead guilty that you simply cannot appeal to the higher court. Unlike when people go to trial, if they get convicted, they can appeal everything. Do you understand those rights, Mr. Settle?
Yes.
Also, if I accept your plea, it means you won't be able to come back later on and try to say that the plea was the result of some promise or threat that no one told me about today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
It also means you will not be able to come back later on and try to say that it really wasn't your own choice to plead guilty today. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And Ms. Matusko, I'm going to ask you to put there's a partial plea agreement that you'll put on the record. There's actually a written plea agreement that I'll address in a moment, but it has additional terms in it. Ms. Matusko?
Thank you, Your Honor. The defendant will be pleading guilty to count 1, armed robbery. Upon successful plea and sentence, count 2, assault with intent to murder, will be dismissed. Pursuant to Killebrew, the parties agree that the defendant will be sentenced in the B4 cell of the A grid with a fixed minimum sentence of 81 months. And then, as Your Honor noted, there are additional terms that have been memorialized in a written plea agreement.
All right. And Mr. Austin, as far as the sentence agreement goes, is that a full and complete statement?
It is, Your Honor. That's my understanding of it. That's what I have conveyed to Mr. Settle.
Okay, and then you acknowledge as well there's additional terms that are in a written plea agreement that's been provided to the court.
That is correct, Your Honor, and I've also gone over those with Mr. Suttle.
Okay, and I think what the holdup is that we just haven't had the fully signed copy returned yet. But Mr. Suttle, all of that, is that all your understanding of the agreement as well?
Yes.
And you did go over an actual written plea agreement with your lawyer, right?
Yes.
Did you sign it?
Yes.
Okay, so we just haven't gotten it back, but you acknowledge that all of that contains what the agreement is, correct?
Yes.
And you do agree with it?
Yes.
Okay, now, this agreement about your sentence, they're talking about a fixed minimum term of 81 months. You know what that means, right?
Yes.
If for some reason I decided not to go along with that, I would tell you before I sentenced you, and I'd give you a chance to take back this plea and start all over. You got all that?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you anything else to get you to plead guilty that hasn't been said here right now or put in the written plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone used any threats to get you to do this?
No.
Is it your own choice to plead guilty today?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty because you believe you are in fact guilty of this offense in count 1?
Yes.
Okay, then tell me what you did on or about January 4 of the year 2020.
Me and some people went to rob my victim, and that's what happened.
Okay, and how did you rob the victim? What did you do?
Stabbed him.
Okay, did you do that or someone else?
I did.
All right, and you did that in order to take something from him, is that correct?
Yes.
What did you take from him?
Money and marijuana.
Okay. And you stabbed him with a knife, I presume?
Yes.
And that all happened at on Denora Street in Lansing, Ingham County, correct?
Yes.
Has the court complied with MCR 6.302, Ms. Matusko?
You have, Your Honor.
Mr. Austin?
The court has, Your Honor.
Are you aware of any promises, threats, or inducements other than those already placed on the record, Ms. Matusko?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Austin?
No, Your Honor.
The court finds the plea is understandingly and voluntarily made without undue influence, threats, or promises of leniency. It is an accurate plea. It's supported by the testimony. The plea is accepted. I have a sentencing date of Monday, July 26th at 3 p.m. if that works for you, Mr. Austin?
July 26th, 3 p.m.?
Yes.
Yes, that'll work, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So, Mr. Suttle, is it okay with you if we do the sentencing the same way we did this plea remotely?
Yes.
Thank you. Then you should expect a visit, or maybe not an in-person visit, but at least a video visit from someone from the probation department. They're going to interview you for the report that I'll use for sentencing, and then I'll see you remotely, that is on Monday, July 26th at 3 p.m. Do you have any questions before we go?
No.
Your Honor, may I briefly ask Mr. Suttle a few questions?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Suttle, you indicated during your plea that some people went over to rob the victim. Would those people be Alexis Rogan and Alex West?
Yes.
And prior to going to rob this victim, did Alexis Rogan participate in the planning of the robbery?
Yes.
And did Alex West, did you know him by the name Pablo?
Yeah.
And prior to the robbery, did Mr. West indicate to you that if the victim got out of the car that he would in fact shoot him?
Yes.
And did that conversation happen in the car on the drive to the robbery?
Yes.
So Ms. Rogan was also present for that conversation?
Yes.
Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Then that will conclude our hearing on this matter. And Mr. Settle, you can tell them there at the jail that you're all set.